a sit down and a catch up. So grab a drink of choice. I have a green tea as well as my water to switch between the two. And we're just going to sit down and have a big old catch up today. So let's get started. Because I've been so out of creating content at the minute, I really thought it'll be a good idea to sit down and basically just talk you through everything bookish that's been going on in my life recently, my recent reads, what books are on my top priority for my summer TBR, and then some new releases for the new season that I'm excited for. And then we're going to end on a new little challenge I've given myself, kind of inspired by a few people out there, but bookish bingo cards aren't new to the bookish community. So I decided to create my own kind of like summer bookish bingo card to try and push myself to complete some of the reading goals I set myself at the beginning of the year. Now that, not that my year is ending, but by the end of summer, my life is about to change. So I feel like the next couple of months is kind of like my last chance to really knuckle down and get some of my bookish goals completed before a new person enters my life. So that's kind of where we're at today. I'm really excited to sit down and chat with you guys because I haven't spoken to you guys in quite a while. But before I ramble too much, although these videos do tend to be kind of rambly, I do want to jump straight into it. But if you're new around here, hi, I'm Rachel. I create bookish content from reading vlogs to monthly wrap-ups to monthly resets to anything in between. I just kind of like post what I want on here. So if you like what you hear and see today, I'll be really appreciative of a like and subscribe, and for you guys to stick around. Without further ado, let's hop into the first segment, which will be my recent reads. I haven't done a monthly reset video in a while, which is where I usually kind of give you a roundup of what I've recently read. So I thought we'd start with that. But we are starting on a high because we are starting with my most recent 5-star read. And that one is Summer in the City by Alex Astra. I did kind of buy this book based off cover alone. I really, really love the cover and the fact that it's rare in rom-coms and contemporaries to have an illustrated map at the front. So I brought this book physically in the hopes I was absolutely going to love it. And I did. I gave it 5 stars. Yay for me. Because this is my only like third 5-star of the year. And one of them was a reread. So I really haven't been doing that well in my 5 stars, which is really sad. But this one definitely gave me that 5-star feeling. And not because it's like a brand new 6-star favorite read, because I have kind of changed the way I rate my books recently. 6-star is like olive, half a world away. Books that I reread multiple times, that stay with me forever, that I can vividly remember the plot and the characters, and I can just tell you guys all about them and just constantly rave about them. My 5 stars are books that just gave me that feeling. I had a brilliant time reading them. Will I reread them? Maybe not. Will I love them forever and remember them as a 5 stars? Yes. So that's kind of like the difference between now like my 6-star books to my 5-star books. And this was definitely a 5-star. I just had such a fun time reading it. Typical story, set in New York City around the summertime, a billionaire romance with also fake dating. This one basically follows our 2 main characters, Elle and Parker. Elle is a screenwriter, a very successful screenwriter for some really incredible rom-coms, but she's anonymous because she doesn't want anyone to find out her identity. And then Parker is a billionaire. They have one drunken night together years and years ago. And then when Elle goes back to the city for some inspiration for her latest screenplay, she ends up bumping back into Parker and they set up a fake dating situation because Elle needs some inspiration on the hotspots and the most romantic places to be in New York City to help set up her screenplay. And that's kind of where you really need to go into this if you want to know a little bit about it before going in. I just absolutely adored the writing style and made me really excited to read other Alex Astra's work, or know they are fantasy, but it has made me excited to read Light Lark because I really enjoyed her character development and her writing style. So I'm really intrigued to get into that series, hopefully sometime soon, but we're going into summer and fantasy isn't my typical genre anyway, so I don't think I'm going to be reaching for fantasy for the next couple of months, but I am very intrigued to get around to it when I eventually do. But I just had such a fun time reading it. It really does kind of mimic your classic 90s rom-com in terms of kind of the activities that Parker and Elle get up to, and I just really, really enjoyed this book. It is a little bit steamy, but I love a little bit of steam in my romances, so I couldn't complain. So that was the first book I read and gave 5 stars recently. I read that at the very beginning of May, end of April, May. It seems like such a long time ago now. And then this is kind of where we hit a reading fail. Since reading and rating this one, I haven't given a book more than 3.5 stars. And I don't know whether that's where my kind of like reading slump has come from. It's because I'm not picking up good books at the minute. I don't know. But the next book I read on my Kindle was Asher Parker Doesn't Fail. by Ashley Herring Blake. This is the second book in the Bright Falls series by Ashley Herring Blake, which is a collection of companion romance series following sapphic and queer characters. The first one being Delilah Green Doesn't Care, then Asher Parker Doesn't Fail, and then Irish Kelly Doesn't Date. However, Asher Parker, I gave a 2.5 stars. I just did not click with this book. I don't know whether it was the timing on the basis of when I read this book. I just didn't like it as much as Delilah Green Doesn't Care. In Delilah Green Doesn't Care, you really get a strong sense of friendship, and that was my favourite part about the book. So Iris and Astrid are best friends, and then Delilah is Astrid's half-sister. So in the first one, you really get a sense of like friendship, which I really, really enjoyed in that book, because Delilah Green falls for Astrid's other best friend, Claire, and you get this really, really strong friendship group. And I absolutely adored the banter and the bickering between the two half-sisters and the friends, and this kind of like not allowed romance, because Delilah Green was falling for her half-sister, who she doesn't really like's best friend Claire, and it just had this really good bantery dynamic, and I really, really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. And then I was expecting really good things with Asher Parker, and it just failed. No pun intended. Asher Parker did fail, unfortunately for me. I just don't think that banter came back as strong in the second book, and I definitely don't think you got as much friendship in the second book, because you're following Asher Parker, who is an interior designer, and she's really, really struggling with her career, and she's losing out on a lot of clients, and she finally gets one client who's really, really important to her, because it's a kind of like small town romance companion series as well. So Asher Parker ends up trying to renovate the local kind of like historic house, and the other girl coming on the scene is a family member of this family like heirloom house, and they just don't get along. It's enemies to lovers, and I just didn't like their chemistry. I couldn't get on board with it. I never really felt connected to their romance, and therefore I just felt this book felt a little bit flat for me. So I gave it 2.5 stars. It's a fine book, but I don't really remember much about it, which says a lot compared to like me remembering quite a lot from Delilah Green. It did make me hesitant to go into Iris Kelly Doesn't Date, which I'm really hoping for good things with, because it has fake dating, but I have yet to read it. So unfortunately, that one was a miss for me. I then went into a 3-star book. I rated 3 stars to Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater, and I actually really enjoyed it. But the ending just felt a little bit slack for me, which is where the 3-star came from, because I actually think from the writing style and the way the author told this story and what the story is actually about, I found it fascinating, and I was constantly intrigued, and I felt like it was going to be a 4-star throughout most of this book. And then it kind of like the ending did fall a little bit flat for me, so I've left it on a 3-star. This book basically follows our 2 main characters, Roach and Laura, and Roach works in a local bookstore that Laura ends up coming to join later on in the book. And Roach has this fascination with murder podcasts and serial killers, and Laura's mother has unfortunately passed away. So when Roach gets onto this connection, she wants to know the ins and outs of Laura's mother's passing, which Laura is obviously very secretive of and doesn't really want to give away a lot of information. And Roach then becomes very much obsessed and stalkerish with Laura, and Laura has this inkling all along, but everyone keeps rubbing her off, being like, no, Roach is just like a very unique character, there's nothing wrong with her, like she's not stalking you. And you get this real like insight. It's dual perspective, so you get Roach's perspective as well as Laura's, and I found it such an interesting, intriguing read. Like I really would recommend it. It's just the ending, I just wish the ending had ended differently. Otherwise it probably would have got a 4-star from me, but I did really, really enjoy it. Like I said, 3 stars aren't bad for me. Let me just do a little bit of a side tangent of ratings for me. So 1 star is I barely give out, because usually I've DNF'd by that point. So don't ever really expect a 1-star rating from me. 2-star was it was fine. I managed to slog through, but I wish I kind of hadn't, i.e. Asher Parker. 3-star was like, I would recommend this book. I enjoyed it. It just doesn't really have a lasting impact on me. 4-star was, oh my God, I really love this book. It has a lasting impact on me, but it just didn't give me that 5-star feeling. And then 5-star is like, yes, it gave me that 5-star feeling. I absolutely loved it. I can't really complain about anything about it. It was kind of perfection to me. And then my 6-star is, this is my all-time favorite book. I'm going to talk to you guys about it forever and ever. You'll get sick of me by the time that I finish talking about this book, because I never will. So that's kind of like my rating system now. So take 3 stars, not as a bad review, because 3 stars for me are still good reviews and books that I would recommend. And then the next book that I have fairly recently finished, just this past week actually, was Love My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood, which I gave a 3.5 stars. And what was so fun about reading this book, that I think I gave it a higher rating, was because Mark actually read along with me. So it basically follows our main character. I've forgotten her name. blanked me, I'll enter it here. It follows our main character who unfortunately but comedically dies from choking on a hamburger, but she doesn't completely pass away. She goes into the afterlife waiting room and she gets given a proposal. If she gets given a second chance of life, she has 10 days to go back to Earth and make this one guy fall in love with her. He has to kiss her within 10 days and then she'll get a second chance of life. So she takes this deal and she has 10 days on Earth to try and hunt down this dude that she's never ever kind of known his name or where he lives. So it's a real challenge for her to try and find this character, and she is running out of time. And along the way, it creates some really good friendships and bonds, because when she did choke on the hamburger, she wasn't really living life to her fullest. She was just kind of living day to day. But when she goes back to Earth after kind of dying, and she kind of realizes that life is more than just kind of living day to day, that she can make really good friends, and she ends up fake dating her neighbor who lives in the same flat complex as her, and everything kind of pursues from there. So it's kind of like a love triangle sort of book, because she is really pining over this character who's meant to save her and save her life and give her the kiss of life, but she also starts falling for her flatmate. When I explained that to Mark, basically this character getting a second chance of life, he was like, that actually sounds really intriguing. So he actually listened to the audiobook of it throughout the week. I was always a little bit ahead of him, but it was really nice to sit down in the evenings and have dinner and discuss the book. And he actually gave it a 4-star. So if you want a good rom-com, it was written in a really funny way. There was very kind of laugh out loud moments. So I think although it was a really funny book and the concept was really intriguing and very unique, I personally gave it a lower rating at 3.5 because I wanted that little bit more of an emotional impact and emotional punch to me. I kind of wanted to feel more towards the characters in an emotional way rather than a comedic way, whereas Mark really, really enjoyed the humor in this book, and that's why he gave it a higher rating, because he thought it was so funny. So I would say me and Mark both recommend this book, but if you're going in wanting a more kind of impactful story, because this book is the premise of this woman having a second chance of life, it isn't kind of your emotional book for that kind of topic. It's more your comedic, funny side of book for that topic. But we still both really enjoyed it. Me a 3.5 and Mark a 4. And then the next book I also finished last week was Pomona Afton Can Totally Solve a Murder by Bellamy Rose. I gave it a 3.5 stars, but I think it might even be a 4. I definitely think I enjoyed it more than Love of My Afterlife. And this book basically follows our main character, Pomona Afton, who's always been very well off. Her family have a lot of trust funds. They're very well off. She's never had to work. She's never got a degree. She's always been given everything in her life to her. She's never had to work a day in her life. And she's very kind of not stuck up, but she's very well off. So when her grandmother randomly gets murdered, the entire trust fund for her entire family gets paused. And it's written in the grandma's will that the trust fund will only get unpaused if they can figure out who the murderer is, because the grandma didn't want the money or trust fund going to someone within the family who may have potentially murdered her for her money. So she freezes the entire trust fund for the entire family. And that leaves Pomona Afton quite on a little bit of a lurch, because she's never really done anything for herself before. So she ends up moving in with her ex-nanny's son, which is an interesting forced proximity of romance blooming. And she also decides to try and solve the murder so she can get back to her old life. But what I really enjoyed this book was the character development of Pomona. She goes from this kind of semi-stuck up, everything being given to her, luxury lifestyle, to really learning how to live in the real world. And she gets a job at the local bakery, and she ends up starting a bakery kind of side hustle, because she ends up really enjoying baking, which I absolutely love that side plot. Yeah, now talking about it, I think I might bump this book up to a 4-star. I did really enjoy it. And I really just loved her self-development in this, because she really did realize that she doesn't need her grandmother's wealth to be successful by herself. And it was just a really beautiful told story with some humor and a little bit of a murder mystery solved in there as well. The murder mystery wasn't kind of the reason I was reading the book, because I just really enjoyed the self-development and the characters and the relationship between her and the nanny's son. So I really enjoyed this one, and I would recommend it. No one's spoken about it. I've not heard about it. It was a random pickup, and I'm so glad I read it. And then we're just going to end on a little bit of a low, and that was The Rule Book by Sarah Adams, which I finished yesterday, giving it a 3-star. I think this is my lowest Sarah Adams book to date. I have read all of the When in Rome trilogy that is out, so When in Rome, Practice Makes Perfect, and Beg, Borrow and Steal. I've also read The Cheat Sheet, and now I've read The Rule Book. And for me, the rule book was lacking once again. I just didn't feel connected to the characters. This is the second book in a cheat sheet series. This is a continuation, companion series, following the best friend of the first cheat sheet books male interest. So Nathan and Brie are in the first book, which is a sports romance, which I really enjoyed, gave it a 4-star. And then this one's another sports romance, but not really heavily on the sport, because our main character, who is Nathan's best friend, what was his name? I literally finished it yesterday. Derek. I was like, what the fuck is his name? Derek. What a shit name. I'm sorry, what a shit name for a rom-com. His name is Derek, and is Nathan's best friend. And he's also in the NFL, but he's had to pull out because of an ankle injury, and he's trying to get back on the horse. But he ends up needing a new kind of sports agent. So enters his ex-girlfriend from college, Derek and Nina. Is it Nina? I think it might be Nina. And they end up kind of like reforming a connection. So it's second chance romance, ex-lovers, rivals, enemies to lovers sort of thing. I don't love enemies to lovers anyway. I didn't really ever feel connected to their romance, and I just don't think there was actually that much plot. And my favourite parts were when Derek's best friends were in the picture, and you got an insight on Nathan and Brie, which is a couple from the first book, and you kind of got that friendship vibe again. If you couldn't tell, I absolutely love friendships in books. I really think they heighten a romantic story, because it's not just about the couple, it's about their life surrounding being a couple as well. So that was definitely the highlight for me. But for me, it's just the book fell so flat, and sadly I just didn't love it, and it just felt like a drag to try and finish. I just didn't really care about it at all. It was a fine book. I'm sure it was just kind of like more my mood than anything. But yeah, sadly, my lowest Sarah Adams rating at a 3-star. And Brie. But those are all the books I've recently read. But without further ado, jumping into my summer TBR. I've made this summer TBR very small, because my main goal, which we'll get onto later on in the video, is still to cut down my physical TBR massively. So yes, I can pick out a few books that are my top priority from my physical TBR, but all of them still are my top priority, because I want to get rid of all of the books off my physical TBR. I originally did say by the end of the year, but I kind of would love to get them done by the end of September. So there's only 4 books I'm going to mention on my summer TBR, because like I said, I want to try and read all of them anyway. So I've literally just pulled out the 4 most summery books on my physical TBR that I want to get around to before summer ends. And hopefully the weather picks up a little bit, so it'll actually feel like summer when I'm reading these. And the first one is Beautiful Ruins by Jess Walter. This is a book that's kindly given to me by Emily last year, the year before. It's one of her favourite books. And she said, I really enjoy it. I am really daunted by this book because of the premise. But basically on the blurb, it says the story begins in 1962. Somewhere on a rocky path of the sun-stretched Italian coastline, a young innkeeper, chest deep in daydreams, looks out over the incandescent waters of the Laguna Sea and views a beautiful woman, a vision in white, approaching him on a boat. She's an American starlet, he soon learns, and she is dying. And the story begins again today, half a world away in Hollywood, when an elderly Italian man shows up on a movie studio backlot searching for the woman he last saw in his hotel 50 years before. It sounds like a book that I'd really enjoy. I did use up one of my audiobook credits to get this on audiobook, just in case I need a little bit of a helping hand, but I'm hoping I'm actually going to love it. And then the next one is Jill Manslay's The Wedding of the Year. I picked this book up last year, hoping to read it this summer, just because I needed another book in the 3 for £6 deal at the works, and this was the last one that counted semi-interesting to me, but it definitely is like your summer book. This follows a wedding of a lot of different people, and one of my favourite book kind of buzzwords is when you follow 2 to 3, 4 timelines of different characters, and they all kind of end up interlinking and connecting as one. This book basically says that it's set to be a perfect day, but this wedding definitely isn't going as planned. Lottie is a guest at the wedding when she sees Max again. No kiss has ever matched the last one they shared 15 years ago. Now here he is, and the overwhelming electric attraction is back, but Max is way out of bounds. Freya owns Cameron everything, but she doesn't love him, which is a shame because they're about to be married. And Ruby has been the perfect wife. When she discovers the truth about her husband, her response is reckless and delicious. Surely she deserves one glorious act of revenge. There will be a wedding of the year, but maybe not yet. So that one's on my summer TBR. And then the last 2 are from one of my favourite authors, Sarah Morgan. I say one of my favourite authors because I absolutely adore her Christmas books. So she tends to release 2 books a year, 1 summer book, 1 Christmas book, and I only tend to gravitate towards her Christmas books. So this year I was like, right, I'm going to read her summer books. So I picked up her 2024 summer release, which is the Summer Swap, and then her most recent release, The Secret Escape has just come out at the very end of May, and I saw it in Tesco like last week, and I was having a little bit of a down day, so I picked up as a little bit of a treat, and this is The Secret Escape. So the summer swap follows Cecilia, 75th birthday celebration takes an unexpected turn. She seeks solence away from festivities and escapes to Doon Cottage without telling her family where she's going. And she ends up forming a budding friendship with Lily, who's a struggling artist, and she's secretly been staying at that cottage. And it's a chance to start over, and I love a starting over book. So I'm really excited to get into that one, but I'm actually more excited to read this one because this one follows best friends and friendships, best friends, starting over, second chances, give it all to me. This one says a lifelong friendship. Childhood friends Millie and Nicole have always been more like sisters. And Millie never understood why Nicola dropped out of contact all those months ago. Millie buried the hurt and moved on with her life. Now suddenly Nicole is begging for Millie's help. She needs somewhere private to hide, and the only safe place she can think of is Millie's holiday home business in the Lake District. Millie knows she should tell Nicole no, but she can't ignore the desperation in her old friend's voice. So despite her misgivings, she agrees to let Nicole stay, and they connect over that one summer. And it kind of reminds me of Girlfriends by Holly Bourne, where two best friends were really, really close. They kind of lost contact, and then they kind of regain their connection again. So I'm really excited to read this one as well. So those are the 4 books on my physical TBR, on my summer TBR that I really, really like to get to this year. Hopefully, because otherwise I'll be failing at one of my major goals, which is to read my entire physical TBR this year. Quickly hopping into new releases for the summer. 2 of them you can probably guess because I've spoken about them before, I think. The first one is Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston. I'm so excited. This will be my 4th adult Ashley Poston book, and potentially my 4th 5-star from her. I have rated The Dead Romantics, A 7-Year Slip, and A Novel Love Story, all 5 stars. So I'm really excited to delve my teeth into her latest release. I am a little nervous though, because the premise doesn't sound all that up my street, but neither did The Dead Romantics. So I'm hoping I'm still going to absolutely love it, because this one basically follows a magician who is really struggling with writer's block. I don't know what the terminology is for a magician, but she's struggling to write her latest piece of music, and then she gets a song or a voice stuck in her head, and that voice comes into her real world. What I love most about Ashley Poston is that all her books feature some sort of magical realism. The Dead Romantics is a ghost writer and the ghost comes to life. The 7-Year Slip is a time-traveling apartment. The Novel Love Story is our main character falls into her favourite fictional world. I just love that she always has this sense of like magic within her books that really kind of like highlights how magical reading and books can actually be. And I just feel like she really writes books for readers. And so I'm really excited to see how she kind of takes on the musician plot, and see if she ends up intertwining any kind of like bookish related things in there as well. I'm actually going to go pick this book up on release day. So I'm really, really hoping I'll grab my hands on it on the 17th of June. I'm really, really excited. And then 2 days later, we have another favourite author, the release of mine, and that's Fredrik Backman's brand new book, My Friends. I absolutely adore Fredrik Backman. Not to like, I don't know, put it out there, but I feel like I was a fan of his before he got really popular. I read Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by him back in 2018, 19, and then reread it in 2020 after my granddad had passed away from dementia, because that novella is basically all about a grandson and a grandfather, and the grandfather trying to explain what it's like to lose your memory. So the second time I read that book, I really, really felt a connection to it. And ever since then, I've truly fallen in love with Fredrik Backman. I've read Beartown, Anxious People. I've read more. Oh my God, I think of them. A Man Called Uwe, one of my favourite books of all time. That's a 6-star book for me. So I do really, really adore his writing, and definitely feel like I was ahead of the trend with Fredrik Backman. But I am really excited to read his latest release. Once again, I'm not sold on the premise. It follows an artist who has been painting this really famous piece of art that features 4 friends within the frame, but you also have a dual perspective of the artist creating this piece of art, and then actually the backstory of that piece of art, I believe. So you actually follow the 4 friends within the image as well. Something along those lines. I'm really intrigued. I absolutely adore the way he writes stories and characters and the emotional intelligence he has within his book. So I'm very intrigued, but the premise does kind of intimidate me, not going to lie. But I'm excited, and that one comes out on the 19th of June in the UK, if you're aware, because I feel like I've been trying to read it for ages because it's already come out in America, but we're still waiting here in the UK patiently for his new book to come out. And then finally, the last book I'm really excited for, so excited for, that I requested a arc on NetGalley, so fingers crossed I can get my hands on it, because Hannah Boehm Young Another one of my favourite authors has a book coming out at the beginning of September, September 9th. She has a book out called People Watching, which will be her first book outside of the Out the Limb or Next of Kin series that she's been releasing and writing. So I'm really, really intrigued to read this one. I have no idea what it's about, but I'm very excited to read it, and I'm really, really hoping I get an arc of it. I haven't heard anything back yet, but I know a lot of people have requested it. So I'm not hopeful I'm going to get an arc, but either way, it's only a couple months to wait until that book comes out, and I'm sure I'm going to be able to read it as soon as possible anyway. So I'm very, very excited to read that one. Don't know what it's about. I'm assuming it's a romance, but I'm very, very excited to read it. And now on to the really fun thing, which is my summer bingo bucket list, all orientating around my reading and some of my like yearly goals I set at the beginning of the year to try and focus on them in the next couple of months before we get into like the last quarter and I'm like, I have no time to read. So I'm creating a summer bookish bucket list to try and focus and hone in on some of my goals I set myself at the beginning of the year. So I have actually done a bullet journal spread for this. So I'll insert a time lapse of me actually creating my bingo board whilst I talk through some of the squares that I'd hopefully like to fulfill within the bingo board this summer, which I'm going to kind of count until like September. So we have June, July and August to try and complete these 9 prompts. So 3 a month. Doesn't seem too difficult, fingers crossed. So we have actually reread some books. At the beginning of the year, I gave myself 12 books to reread and I've only read 1 of them. So I'm not going to be rereading my 12 books this year, but I would like to read at least some of them. The ones that kind of like definitely on my top priority right now, like are really calling me to want to reread. Anxious People by Frederick Buchman, The 24-Hour Cafe by Libby Page, and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab are the 3 out of the 12 that I put on the beginning of the list that are really calling out to me to want to reread and tab up and make part of my forever collection this year. So hopefully I can get those 3 read, because although there's only 9 squares in this bookish bingo board, some of them have multiple steps to them. So that first one already has 3 steps to them. I need to reread 3 books. I've put 1 on the bingo board just to give myself a little bit of hope to actually complete these, but I'd like to read all 3. I would also really love to start the Windy City series by Tim and Tom Ford. I have seen nothing but incredible reviews about the latest book and the final book, Rewind It Back, I think, the red cover, and it's making me really want to read the series. I have Mile High, I think is the first one, on my Kindle and have had it on my Kindle for months and months and months now. So I would really like to actually start it. So the challenge is to at least read Mile High, potentially read more if I get really invested. And I'm hoping to read that one by the end of June if my reading schedule goes to plan. My next one is a little bit of a fun one, no reading involved, but I'd like to purchase some new releases. Obviously, 2 of my favourite authors are coming out of books in the next couple of weeks. It's Ashley Poston, Sounds Like Love, and Frederick Buchman, my friends. So I'd love to buy physical copies of both of those books because I know I'm going to love them and want to tab them up and want to make them part of my forever collection. So why not buy them now? Why not treat myself in my birthday month to 2 of my favourite authors releasing books literally within like a week span of my birthday? It seems like a no-brainer. So that is one of my bingo squares. And everyone's raving about Carly Fortune, and I have not read one of her books. Her latest one, One Golden Summer, has just come out, and I've heard incredible things about it. But I also would love to read Every Summer After, because I think that is the first book in this like companion series. So one of my bingo squares is just to read a Carly Fortune. I haven't dictated which one yet, because I just want to see which one I'm in the mood for. But I'm pretty sure they're on Kindle Unlimited as well, so that's always a win in my opinion. Another one is a big one with multiple steps, and that is to finish my 2025 TBR. This is my 2025 TBR. I'm only a few books away from there. I have All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir, Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors, starting Written in the Stars by Alexandra Belfleur, that series. And I think that might be it. If I'm wrong, the table's up on the screen for you guys now, but I'm so close to completing my 2025 TBR that I really like to get it done in the next couple of months. So fingers crossed that bingo square will get completed. And the next one goes along trying to get my entire physical TBR completed. I want to read 10 books off a physical TBR, and hopefully that will be possible because I do want to be focusing on them. Obviously, my entire summer TBR is off my physical TBR, so that's already 4 down. And then just naturally by reading and picking books and prioritizing the ones on my physical TBR, which is just out of reach here, I will get to 10. I put 10 and not the 23 that I currently have on because I am addicted to my Kindle. I know what one of my birthday presents is from Mark, and it's a Kindle stand and clicker. I'm so excited. So I know that once I get that on my birthday, I'm going to be wanting to read my Kindle and read everything on my Kindle. So I've put a little bit of a goal step down in terms of reading 10 books on physical TBR, but we all know it's to try and read all 23, but 10 books is the minimum. The next one is to actually film and complete and edit and upload a themed weekly reading vlog. I have slacked at weekly reading vlogs recently just because everything that's going on in my life right now. I start off Monday really strong and by Wednesday I've absolutely flopped and I always scrap them. So my goal is to film a themed reading vlog. I'm kind of thinking my besties predict my 5 stars. So getting Chloe and Emily involved on picking one book from my physical TBR each and one book just randomly that they think will be a 5-star for me, because I have not had many 5 stars this year. So I think that might be quite fun because I feel like they know my reading taste, but it'll just be really interesting to just have a twist on your typical weekly reading vlog. So I'd love to film that. And then the next prompt is to finish a series I'm in the middle of. And for me, that would be an easy win of reading Iris Kelly Doesn't Date, which would be the 3rd and final book in the Bright Falls series by Ashley Herring Blake, which I've spoken about already in this video. And that would complete the series and that would be able to tick off the bingo board. So that's most likely the book I'm going to pick for that one. And then finally, it's to read a book that no one's heard of on BookTube. I find some great hidden gems by reading books that I've never heard of before, i.e. Pomona Afton Can Totally Solve a Murder. I really enjoyed that book. I'm bumping it up to a 4-star and I had no one speak about that book whatsoever. And I just found it on Everand one day and I was like, I'm gonna give this a go because it sounds like fun. And it was. And I just need to start trusting myself again with knowing my reading taste and knowing what I enjoy rather than kind of getting swept up into the hype and all the books that are spoken about on BookTube and BookTok and Bookstagram. And although they have some great recommendations, I used to pride myself in my channel of being a space where I promoted books that weren't really heard of before. And I feel like I'm really slacking in that department. So my last bingo square is to read a book that is being unheard of on BookTube. And I might even bring back my reading vlog series where I read books that no one's ever heard of before, just to get new names and new authors out into the book universe, to give smaller authors, etc., less popular authors, more of a chance in this world, because it's getting so saturated. And it's so great that books have become such an amazing hobby for so many people again. But I do miss just giving random books a go and actually ending up really enjoying them without any outside external opinions. So that is the final square on the bingo board. And that is my video for today. I didn't know how this video was going to turn out. I have not been in the mood to film recently, and I was really worried that I was going to ramble for ages, turn off the record button and be like, fuck, that was a shit video, I'm not going to upload that. I've just wasted my entire lunch break filming this video that's not going to see the light of day. But I actually think that this video has turned out semi alright. So you might actually see this video, which would be so exciting. And if you have got to the end of this video and you are new around here, I'd really, really appreciate a massive thumbs up and subscribe down below to see future content from me. I do anything from weekly reading vlogs, monthly TBRs, monthly wrap-ups, any other Bookish content that you can think of. I usually have on that channel, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any. And I do massively appreciate all your support during my very up and down last couple of months with creating content. It's just been a whirlwind of my life right now. One day is so different to the next and it's really hard to juggle mentally and physically. So we're going day by day, week by week, but I really hope you enjoyed this video and you got some maybe new book recommendations, or maybe you want to join in on my summer bingo reading challenge. I don't know, let me know in the comments down below what you've recently read, what you're currently reading, what was your last 5-star. I would love to chat to you in the comments because I've missed you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.